New.
This has happened to me before. What just happened with me with Meta. So I used to work for VA Hospital, which is Veterans Affairs, and I was on a project and I was consulting, and we were on a trip, and then on Thursdays, we would go bi-weekly, where we would come back home on an alternative Friday. So, and our flights would usually be on a Friday evening, and Thursday afternoon I get an email that my flight timings have been changed. So I was like, oh great, I'm gonna get home earlier, and I'll get to spend time with my family and go out with my friends. But Thursday night comes along, we go back to the hotel, and I'm in my pajamas watching TV. And this is around the time of 2015 and 16. I think there was something happening between Israel and Palestine at that time as well. I mean, as long as I can remember, every year Israel attacks Palestine, and they kill a bunch of people, then they go to ceasefire and we go back to our normal lives. But in 2015, something was happening amongst those lines, and my manager at the time called me downstairs from my hotel, and I was thinking like he's wanting to have a conversation, or I messed up on something where he wants to have a talk about. But he calls me and he's like, hey, just bring your laptop and your badge too. And I thought maybe we're going to the office to fix something. So I was like, should I change? And he's like, no, just come down in your pajamas. I was like, okay, cool. So I come downstairs and I open my laptop and I'm like, all right, let's work. And he turns around and he says, unfortunately, the reason why you got that email for your flight was because we're downsizing and we're letting people go. Oh, wow. So I was like, naturally, I was upset. I was like, at least you should have given me some time. And everyone with a natural reaction would have that. Long story short, I go back home with my frowned face, and I'm still thinking about my job, and I'm looking for a job. Funny thing, 2 weeks later, I call a few of my friends that were within the company, and I'm like, hey, are you still working there? Because they were downsizing. So I was indirectly, obviously I wasn't hoping they lost their job, but I was still thinking that, there's a possibility that in the downsize, they probably got let go as well. Some of your coworkers, So everyone that I talked to, they were completely fine and they were still working. So I called one of my coworkers, again, same situation with Meta. I called him and I was like, hey, and I won't mention his name, but I was like, hey, this is what happened. He's like, oh, you got let go? And I was like, yeah, they told me they were downsizing. And he's like, I didn't know about this. And he was in like senior level position. So he calls me, he's like, let me call you back in 10 minutes, find out, and I'll give you a call back. So a couple hours later, he calls me back and he's like, hey, I can talk to you off records, not on records, where I can tell you what actually happened. And I was like, okay, that's fine. You can take me into confidence. And that's why I'm still not mentioning his name. Sure. We're off records. He mentioned saying that, it's your Facebook. It's the type of content that you're posting on your Facebook where someone within the company or someone within VA saw and they thought you were a threat.
So they're checking on their employees' Facebook and social medias and whatnot.
I don't think it's just employees. I think what they want to do is financially cripple you. But
so I'm saying, like, your employer is scanning their employees.
Right.
Like, in other words, you.
And in general, I mean, in any place that you work at, I think with Meta or the consulting gig that I had with the VA, I think the mindset is that they want to scare you to a point where you stop talking about it, right? Where you stop mentioning it, where 20 years ago when 9/11 happened, I remember my father putting an American flag sticker on my backpack so he can prove that we're equivalent or we're equally American as everyone else is, and we're proud to be. But
I remember specifically my mom taking my mom and dad and I went out, and she was like, we need to go buy like some USA stuff. And she bought me this USA flag shirt. And I was like 8, 9 maybe.
And that's what
and I didn't know what was going on. I was just like, she was like, no, but she was really emphasizing that she was like, we need to get this. We bought like a USA flag, all of that stuff. So that rememted me of that, is that fear and to make people go walking.
And it was continuous, right? It was like even though 9/11 happened after for many years after that, it was a constant struggle. One of the memories that I have of growing up throughout that time was I was sick. I was scared of calling my mom to school because of the reaction she could get because she wore a hijab. So, and unfortunately, as soon as she got to the school to pick me up, someone made a comment about her being Bin Laden's wife, right?
And you were 9/11. You were probably like what, 10, 12?
I was 11 when it happened,
Okay.
and then when this incident happened, when someone made a comment about my mother, it was when I was like 13, 14 years old.
Okay.
And as a child, you're being groomed to become a good individual, or a person with that fear, a constant fear about proving yourself, where, hey, I'm equivalent to any other individual that's out there. But is the other party thinking that, right? The same situation where you put Palestine into phase is when Palestinians are dying, there's not that much talk about it. Like, in the past 3 weeks, the amount of Palestinians that have been dying, it's been downplayed. But when you talk about Ukrainians at the time when Russia had attacked Ukraine, people were going nuts. Where they're like, and even some news channels were portraying it, and they came out with saying, it's these aren't like every other person. They're white people with blue eyes, right? I mean,
this isn't Iraq or Afghanistan.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a European country,
and that you can see, right? So throughout my life, I've been like here justifying, hey, I'm equal to you, right? Or I'm trying to show that I'm equal to the other individual who thinks I'm less
but
equal.
In their eyes, they don't see that there's parity between you.
You'll never be. That's why I made that initial step where, maybe, and when you're immigrant, when you move from another country, now living in America, you don't belong here supposedly, according to people that don't like brown people. And then when you go back home, you don't belong there because you don't speak their language, right? I mean, their mindsets and how you've grown outside.
It's a little different.
So both ways, you belong nowhere now, right? All your life you live where you spent in America, you're thinking that, oh, now I'm going to become American. I have a blue passport. But are you really?
Well, so when you move back, right? I think it's been a year or so?
Year and a half, yeah.
When you moved back, did you also find a cultural disconnect the other way? Where I'm obviously you're not, I'm assuming you're not living with people who are driving rickshaws, right?
Right.
So,
and there's nothing wrong with that, right?
I mean, of course, there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm saying that you're living within a specific community of people who are, you could say, upper middle class to elite, and those folk probably don't have the same values as a normal Pakistani person either. Right. So when you moved back, did you find like a cultural disconnect or a values disconnect between what you are representing here for your you're holding it down for your heritage, your culture? When you move back, do you find the same values there?
I mean, there's a disconnect because the difference between the elite and the lower middle class and the lower class, it's huge, right? And again, everything traces back to the West and the media and the mindset that they have. Even though independence was gained by India, Pakistan, Bangladesh at the time, 40s, in 47, 46 time frame, when independence was gained, but that mentality, that slave mentality was left by the British, right? They made you think that they were superior compared to what you were. Right. So even till today, I feel like, people have grown out of it at the time of Imran Khan when he was there politically and he was spreading awareness, but I still think that mindset still exists when someone has a blue passport or makes money in dollars. People have this mindset that person is better than me rather than someone who's living there. So my mindset of moving to Pakistan, and again I travel back and forth, but living in Pakistan, you see the mindsets and you can change, you can groom those mindsets, which I am trying to make them feel like, hey, stop thinking that you're worth less than the people who live in the West, whether they're brown. Their mindset is whether it's brown, white, or blue or black, they're better than us because they live across borders. And again, their mindset was trained, or let's put it as they're brainwashed into thinking, hey, life is always better outside, but they don't go to the root cause of every country that's a third world country, to how did they get to that stage, right? Yeah. I mean, if you look at Africa as a continent, it's the richest continent by resources, right? Yeah. Yet, majority of the population that's poor in the world is in Africa. Right. Why is that? Right? Because of what they've done to you. I mean,
those resources are leaving. Yeah, the
it's leaving, yet they're not gaining anything out of it, right? Yeah. So in that perspective, I think that mindset that needs to be changed. It won't happen overnight because it took hundreds of years of being butchered down for generations, where your mindset was meant to think this way, where hey, the person who's wearing those dress pants and boots is superior compared to the cultural clothing that you're wearing, right? So Imran Khan had that really positive impact on the youth, and that's what pushed me to move towards Pakistan and say, hey, I want to help. But then again, now he's sitting in a prison.
So is that over? Whatever he was trying to do, now he's sitting in a prison cell, and honestly, like, the fervor is kind of gone. Like, he's there now.
Right.
So how do you feel at this given moment about, I guess, if you want to specify, his own political ambitions?
Right. But again, everyone has a short-term memory problem, right? I mean, all of us put Pakistan into perspective, put any country that's not the West. If you, for example, the Iraq attack, right? 2004 or 5 time frame where 1 million people died in Iraq. How many people talk about it now? It's only 17 years. Only 17 years have been passed. I mean, 1 million people died, but yet no one talks about it. Every year, kids die in Palestine, but no one talks about it. Yemen's war took place for 7-10 years, where people were dying out of hunger, and no one was talking about it, right? I mean, now no one is talking about it. At the time, maybe some people talked about it, but if you look at the whole Holocaust, I mean, obviously it's sad whatever happened to them, but yet till today, it's been 70 years, 60 years since this happened, but till today, everyone's like, oh, don't talk about it because it's a sensitive topic.
Right.
But when we talk about the tragedies that have happened, what's happening with, for prime example, if you talk about Palestine, they're like, oh, you're in support of Hamas.
Right.
Condemn Hamas.
Well, there's a outline that's been made, when they're shaping the narrative, and anything that doesn't fit in that outline is the problem. So, I mean, we talked about how fear is one of those tactics, right? Another tactic is, I guess, like putting certain things on a certain pedestal, right? Whether it's the colonizer, whether it's, a historical event or whatever the case is, at the expense of marginalizing like the experience of other people. And like another one that came to my mind, and this kind of alludes to like something Hani, you and I were talking about earlier, which was like induced apathy, right? And that's linked to that historical kind of amnesia, is that you kind of instill a sense of like, what can I do? Nothing. It's not really worth me constantly caring
And I'll
about.
echo that. I'll ask you a follow-up question on that. When you say, what can I do you think these protests that we go to, whether it be in Pakistan, whether it be in any country, I've been to protests in Pakistan, Europe, America, and I feel like it's great that we come out in large numbers, and I'm sure it puts pressure on the elites, but is it really making a difference? I mean, the bombardment still continues in many cities in throughout the world. I mean, Sudan is being attacked on. I mean, internally, they're killing each other, and no one talks about it. But when we're coming out in these large numbers protesting against what's happening in Palestine, I mean, is it really making a difference?
So I think that's really what I'm getting at, is I think there is a kind of, and I'll address the question, but I want to also talk about that phenomenon of the question, right? There's so many different things that are like going on in life, right? People have their day-to-day whatnot, and we look at these things as like huge, like insurmountable tasks for us to do compared to the things that we have to face on a day-to-day basis. And I think a lot of times the historical victories get forgotten as well, right? Things that seemed very unlikely. But what you see is this pattern of things being important in people's minds and then dying down. These things coming up and dying down.
Because it mentally washed you in a way where you're in a bubble where you're constantly thinking about, hey, my rent is due in a couple of weeks. My credit card payment is due in a couple of weeks, or my car payment is due. So now, even if you go out and protest, the following day you're back into that circle of life where you're constantly worrying about.
And these are the problems you've got to immediately solve,
Well,
right,
I think
and get over. So
the induced apathy that you're talking about, like, and you also mentioned like this like training that you go through, and the induced apathy is directed specifically in our own circles. We might notice it. The apathy is only directed towards causes that are directly related to us. If it's, let's say, in my own circle, for example, I have people who are like, hey, what's happening in Ukraine is bad. What happened in France is bad. And what happened in, I don't know, any other given country is bad. But they will not say anything about Palestine. They will not say anything about Kashmir or Yemen, right? And it will be South Asians. It will be, people who are Hindu or Muslim, right? There'll be Indians and Pakistanis. And you're like, wait, why are we refraining from this topic, right? And I noticed it with my Sunni friends, where hey, we're speaking out against this, like, I don't know, Syria, or we're speaking out against stuff happening, Islamophobia or some shootings, but Shia genocide or genocide of Shia people, or like this this overall regional tension, this rift, right, that's existed for at least a few decades right now in prominence. I'm not talking about the historical.
But you have to admit, since this Palestine event has taken place, the Ummah, not the leaders, but the majority of the population in the Muslim Ummah is on the same page around Palestine, right? So we can at least see the unity on one thing rather than other things. Sure, I agree with the Shia genocide. I agree with the Kashmir topic where no one talks about it. But at least in this particular subject where we're talking about Palestine, everyone has the same point of view. Where hey, it's the occupier that's bad. It's not the person who's living there.
I don't think so.
That's talking about
a
different perspective.
Completely, and also this I feel like that's a generalization because I'm for Palestine, and I meet a bunch of people that are for Palestine that are in our own circle. I'm not the same point of view as them because some of them are saying, hey, let's have 2 states, let's have a unilateral ceasefire. Whatever is happening is bad right now. Let's go back to status quo. I'm not for any of that. So for me to be like, oh, these are the same positions as mine. No,
well, so not. That's where that's where I think a lot of people are getting on board, but they haven't necessarily started to see the nuance in the issue, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody supports Palestine. What does support Palestine mean? Who do you support? What do you support? What outcome would you?
And what's the solution?
Align with what's the solution to the problem?
Right.
That's where I feel like further development would need to come into play once people get on.
Where I feel like the apathy takes, like, I mean, even on this issue where there's such a everyone's having such a emotional response, it's tempered compared to, like, let's say when Ukraine is going out and doing what they're doing. There's no call for like ceasefires. Like, no, give them their land back. That is where the conversation starts.
Yeah, I don't know why a majority of the folks are talking about. And one thing I don't understand is we know that the West is funding the whole war that Israel is committing, the genocide that Israel is committing with Palestinians. Now, when you're protesting against the people. I mean, you're protesting and asking for ceasefire from the people who are committing this genocide, right? I mean, my mindset is, okay, you're going to Austin, you're standing outside the Capitol building, or you're going to DC, which is good. I'm not degrading it, but what I'm saying is that, again, you're going to the devil and asking them to have some sympathy for you, right? I mean, you're begging them to stop attacking us. But what we should go to the root cause of the whole problem, right? I mean, a lot of people go, oh, October 7th was the start of the reaction, what Hamas did. And again, a lot of the shit that Israel or IDF said was, babies beheading and the whole a woman getting raped. Again,
trying to capture the narrative.
How much time did they have? I mean, they had a couple of hours. In that time frame, they raped, they killed babies, and then they took hostages, and then they attacked all these military bases for 4 or 5 hours. And again, I've heard IDF soldiers talking about this, or ex-IDF soldiers saying it's the most surveillanced city in the world. How is it possible that a bunch of guys break your wall, or they come over flying in for a couple of hours, attack you, and they're there taking hostages, and
raping people,
raping,
committing
beheading
human rights
kids,
violations,
and your army isn't doing anything about it. Like the wall that sits that pretty much makes Gaza open air prison is where it's heavily military guarding that wall. If anyone gets even closer to it, their surveillance camera shows them and they start targeting them. So in that perspective, how were they able to get into the country, the occupied country, and start attacking without any reaction from the army? Was it a failure from the Israel side? Or was it an inside job? Right? I mean, are those questions, and when those questions are asked to Netanyahu at the time, he's responding back saying, this isn't the time of questioning, it's the time of uniting. The same thing George Bush said when 2002 or 2001 happened.
Because he doesn't want those questions to be able to fracture what he's got going on internally.
Oh yeah, I mean, everyone knows his seat is in danger, right? I mean, his own people are protesting against him, but those are the type of questions any normal individual who has common sense would ask, right? Saying, how did this even take place when we have so many surveillance cameras surveilling them, and a bunch of hooligans come in and attack us for 6 hours, raping our women and killing our kids? So and I feel like a lot of these protests that we're having, again, we're asking for ceasefire, but okay, let's just say they cease fire, right? Let's say that the aid comes in. Let's say everything is fine and dandy. What about those 20,000 plus people that they've killed? Who comes and pays for that? Are you going to give those lives back?
So here's where I would say would be, I guess, the ideal, right? Is the pressure that the people put, and I'm not saying this is what's going to happen or this, I'm giving kind of like an alternate thinking on this. The pressure that people put through these protests, through boycotts, through whatever the case may be, on the government makes it unviable for the government to continue allowing Israel, because Israel and US is doing this in coordination. Wait, hear me out.
Uh-huh.
And at that point, then the pressure comes, because what they're saying right now is behind the scenes, Biden is telling Netanyahu, hurry up. Escalate, get this done.
Yeah.
Get this done. My re-election is coming.
Yeah.
It depends on this. Do what you need to do. Wrap it up.
Right.
Speed it up. But for people to change that and for him to be like, oh shit, my re-election is coming. Hey, stop, slow down, cut it out, right? And he would have that. Now Israel would lose the diplomatic support that it needs. At that point, they will be forced to go to a ceasefire, which means Israel would have to sit at the negotiating table with the Palestinians. The Palestinian demand is, give us our 10,000 prisoners back. We'll give you your 300 whatever people that we took.
But they've already killed 20,000 plus.
I agree. But what I'm saying is the initial demand will be met.
But do you want to negotiate with them now? I mean, I think
that's not on you or me. That's on the Palestinian.
No, I'm asking you as a human being and a person who supports Palestinians. Yeah. Would you want to sit on a negotiating table now?
Well, every ceasefire works that way, right? There's always a term. It's like a technical.
You're going to have to sit.
It's a technical.
No, but that's what I'm asking you, right? As an individual, I'm not talking about what the conditions take place after ceasefire and how it comes to play. But I'm asking you, as an individual who supports Palestinians, do you think the right thing to do now is to sit on the table?
You have to sit at the table.
Well, sitting at the table doesn't necessarily mean giving concessions. Sitting at the table can be done from a place of leverage as well.
Well, the concession will be like you're getting your hostages back too.
Well, that's but concession in a way that's a
even if you get those 10,000 hostages back, which I highly doubt.
No, I'm saying the concession from the Palestinian side is getting back the hostages.
Their hostages, and they give us our hostages. But what I'm saying is, what about those 20,000 lives that you've lost?
Well, the question would be then, okay, because of the 20,000 lives lost can't be brought back, so do you just never have a ceasefire and this continues ad nauseum? Or do you at some point say, okay, given everything that's happened, we need to make sure that we don't lose 20,000 more lives, 50,000 more lives?
Call me crazy, but I think the best route to this is eventually go at all-out war. I mean,
well, I think that might happen. I think that might happen if there's like a certain line that's crossed. I don't know what that line is.
I mean, what?
And I'm sure they have it planned
every
out.
year you file, you go through a ceasefire, negotiate. The next year,
I'm talking about specifically this one.
For the longest time I can remember, I mean, we've all been going to protests since we were kids, right? It's just got worse.
But that's too general, right? If you dig a little bit deeper, like zoom in a little bit, this specific operation, right? And each one in the past few years has put Israel in a more and more compromised position. So they do it again, they're more compromised. They do it again, they're more compromised. You see a lot of the world since Russia's invasion of Ukraine has turned away from United States. Majority in the Western Bloc, in the pro-Israel bloc, majority of Africa, Latin America, a lot of Asia. It's becoming a bit more difficult. Netanyahu and Israel doesn't have the same diplomatic cover that they did before. Now, yeah, UN is still bought out by United States.
But you have some Israeli politicians saying drop a nuke on them.
That's
right?
not going to happen. If they drop a nuke on them, they're going to radiate their own people.
Sure, yeah, but you have that
rhetoric.
type of rhetoric that's being played out in Israel.
I mean, it's just rhetoric. It's just.
I think the battle will take its course, though. I think it may escalate. I think Hezbollah might be, because if you listen to...
I mean, whether it be Hezbollah, whether it be whichever country that retaliates to what they're doing, but, you know, at this given point, I don't think the best answer is to sit at a table with them. Because every year you sit,
so what would be an alternative?
So right now the OIC meeting happened. I'm sure you guys heard about that.
Yeah.
The 5 countries or 4 countries that blocked
Saudi Arabia, Morocco,
Bahrain, UAE,
and the UAE.
Yeah. So these couple of countries, if you block them out of their oil for a day, they would be on their knees, right? I mean, in a day they would be crippled. But here you are. Still, the mentality was, oh yeah, let's bring our ambassador back, or we're going to break our ties with you. It's all bullshit, right? I mean, if you look at it on a high level...
and I think only Bahrain is the only one that even brought their ambassador back out of those 4.
Yeah, but Bahrain here said that we're still going to supply you with oil, right?
Exactly,
I mean, is it all about money that you want to chase? Or,
for them it is.
My mindset is, I don't think with Arab countries they have any power. The only power they have is...
Would that throw the all-out war thing out the window?
No, but my mindset is either there's a saying in Urdu saying "Arya pare," right? I mean, rather than being slaughtered on a daily, you react. You give them some sort of... But I think
that's what October 7th was, right?
But again, we don't know how accurate those videos are that are being played in front of us.
What do you mean?
Like a lot of those videos that were
I'm
shown
not talking
were
about the atrocities.
Rejected by a lot of journalists saying that they were false.
Yeah, I'm not talking about like the atrocities. I'm talking about like the incursion itself.
Yeah.
Like that was the kind of, okay, hey, we are going to...
Yeah, that's because Saudi Arabia was about to normalize ties with Israel.
That was one of the reasons, right? And I think that was a reason that made this the opportune moment to do something like this. Because they say that this has been something that Hamas had been planning for a couple of years.
Right. I mean, my mindset is if Hamas did kill innocent civilians,
well, I don't know if they did or not.
If what IDF is saying that, hey, this is how many people died. Again, they have a track record of lying.
There's evidence coming out now that IDF killed a lot of those people.
Yeah, and a lot of those folks that were at that concert said our own soldiers were killing us.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I mean, it's a he say she say type of situation. But let's just say, for the benefit of the doubt, that Israel or IDF is telling us the truth, right? Let's just say 1,300 people did die who were innocent civilians. Sure, it's wrong. No one's justifying any innocent civilian life being taken as the right thing to do. But let's talk about the 70 odd years that the Palestinians have been attacked on. Let's talk about Great Nakba. Let's talk about all those events that have taken place where it wasn't an act where they were attacking Israel or they were attacking... And they talk about these bombs or rockets that the Palestinians throw at them. They're homemade bombs. Well,
no, I'm not going to lie. Some of their tech is the tech that they haven't even unleashed yet is rather sophisticated.
Who, the Palestinians?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I would be surprised. I mean, they're sitting in a open-air prison, so I mean... I
They're
don't know how.
producing engineers.
They
they
have-
have all
they
this
have-
tunnel system.
they
I
have a
don't know
lot of stuff in
how
them
what they're
tunnels.
able to actually.
But again, I don't know how accurate that is, right? I mean, sure, you're talking about a tunnel system, but every video that IDF posts is
they themselves
it's rejected.
but the
They have a tunnel
Palestinians
system.
themselves have said, hey, we have like our whole. Like,
No,
thing
I'm
set
sure
up,
they
you
do,
know?
but
Yeah.
how? To what extent, right? I mean, everything that.
To a pretty great extent, brother. From what I'm hearing, one of the hostages actually that was released said she was describing it as like there was like a whole spider web of a network of tunnels under there. I read one thing about how like to get into some of those tunnels to get to the bottom, you have to actually rappel. You have to like rappel down.
Oh.
So like you're going down. So.
Yeah.
You see, in the Vietnam War, the Viet Cong had a complex tunnel system as well. You only found out after the war, once that was uncovered and whatnot. And that was one of the ways in which the Viet Cong were able to thwart.
You know, funny thing I was not funny.
guerrilla warfare.
A sad thing that I was reading is that the Prime Minister of Israel at the time of 40s, I think, he said that he couldn't sleep at night the first time they attacked the Palestinians, thinking that the Muslims would attack Israel. And by the time he realized that the Muslims were already asleep, right? I mean, the mindset, again, what happened in the 40s has been going on till today. And again, we go back to that
40s.
normal life of, oh yeah, it happened, 15,000, 20,000 people have died in Palestine. So what? What's the big deal?
But here's what the difference
It's
is.
just a number.
Is there's a downtime between these outbursts, right? There's a downtime between these protests. That's the issue. What if there's no downtime? And what if it just grows and grows and grows and grows and grows? Hypothetically, I'm just posing.
I mean, but
this.
you tell me realistically.
No,
hypothetically,
entertain the
yeah, sure,
hypothetical
yeah.
for a
I mean, it might have an impact, but again,
Well, no, so
There-
I'm
there've
saying
been-
go back to 2014,
yeah.
right? And say there's a continuous, maybe not at the same level, but there's continuous efforts, right?
Right.
This is something that's brought into the light.
I mean,
This
we-
is something that's brought into the normative discourse. That has only happened very recently.
Yeah, but if you look at it in the perspective, we've tried to be consistent, right?
You and I have tried.
Yeah, but
how
there's,
many?
like,
But
the
it's,
return of public that's coming out there is like,
is different.
yeah.
Now.
Again,
Now,
for
imagine
now,
if
because the
that
hype is there.
But I'm
right?
saying, imagine if there is no lull. Imagine if you're able to extend. Entertain the hypothetical. Right?
Yeah.
You're able to extend this buzz.
Sure,
and it keeps going
It could
and
have an
going
effect, but
and
we
going.
haven't seen it yet, right? I mean, it's still
So it's just a hypothetical.
yeah.
But if you keep putting that into play, and you see what's happening with like Elbit systems, you saw how they're blockading the ports in Seattle, Tacoma, San Francisco,
Right.
different areas. And they're doing this globally as well.
Right.
In Europe, they've been able to stop shipments and things like that. I'm not sure if they have in the U.S. with the blockages that they did at the ports. I think maybe they did temporarily at the very least.
Yeah.
They've managed to shut Elbit down for a few days, I think.
Right.
So that's... Imagine that growing and sustaining.
But
This
then the Congress
is-
just approved billions of dollars to go to Israel, right? I mean, sure, you're having these protests.
It did.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, imagine if this is a
Yeah. So
thing.
let's say for the past
The
month,
state of the country
it's been
changes.
continuous, right? For the last month.
1 month, right?
Yeah, yeah. Let's just put 1 month into. It's real. It's happening for the past month. Every weekend, there's a massive protest that comes out throughout the world.
Yeah.
But the Congress still approved
There was a
billions
time
of
in
dollars.
this country where people did sit-ins and actually shut shit down. There's a time when labor strikes actually did things. There's a time when bus boycotts did something,
Right.
right?
But
Do
now
we have any of that right now? Is there actually any economic pressure being put? The boycotts have just started, and it hasn't really done much.
But how
yet.
are you supposed to put economic pressure on people who are just printing money? I mean, we're going
Well,
into
it's-
debt.
it's not
on
about the people, right?
We're
It's
going
putting-
into billions of dollars of debt on a daily basis. Like the next
Go into
generation
thi-
doesn't
go
know.
into this from a Marxist lens.
Well, I mean, putting economic pressure as an individual, I'm not. As a principle, that makes sense, I guess, maybe. But if you're thinking that's actually exerting the kind of force that something like, OPEC cutting back oil production would.
No comparison there, but I'm talking about the movement in what
I mean,
I'm
like,
speaking
the
to the
BDS,
phenomenon that
the
he's
BDS
bringing.
movement here has been like trying to get traction for a long time, and they're trying to replicate the South African model.
It's not working.
But
It's not.
because-
It
but
takes
it's not-
decades.
I mean,
Like,
you go to any
that's-
Muslim country,
see,
you
there
still
you go.
have these countries that
the
are
thing is like,
supporting
the thing
companies.
is like, what I don't understand, like, it's like the same thing. Going back to the first question, like the protest stuff. 10 years ago, when you had 500 people standing on the street corner, and none of this was on on TikTok or Twitter or whatever the hell it was, people would say the same. It's not working.
These protests, it's one thing when they're events. There's a difference between event-based protests and a political movement, right? That's the distinction I'm trying to make. Is what we don't have is a political movement. What we have is event-based protests.
Right.
That is just spinning your wheels.
Again, you have political movements with Rashida.
That's not a political movement, brother. That is establishment. That's the political.
But again, they have
establishment.
It's not.
Yeah, okay, it's not. But the things that they're saying,
I don't care about them.
They're still being attacked, right?
Yeah, but I don't care about them.
Well, what are they saying?
They're
I mean,
not-
I don't
care about
Are
Congress
they
or
saying
what's going on
something
in
that
the-
is
yeah,
to be honest.
Rashida Talib went.
She gave a pretty good statement.
She
and
spoke
of
for
course
the
she will.
Palestinians, and they said that she's supporting Hamas. The
But
same
who-
thing with Ilhan Omar. I mean, sure, they're.
But that's not a political movement. I'm talking about a grassroots, peoples-based political movement, a mass political movement versus.
But I would
events being
counter argue that
protests
because
being
this is the
events.
first time we're hearing in U.S. politics anyone supporting Palestine.
Who supports Palestine in U.S. politics?
No one does, right? I mean, for the first time, I heard
What do you
Rashida
mean by
Talib.
support Palestine, though?
I mean,
I
speaking
would
for
say a
Palestine.
one-state solution is a support.
I agree. I completely agree.
So
that
to
one
me,
state,
no politician is
sure,
supporting
but
Palestine.
at this point, even anyone that's talking about Palestinians, right? People dying in Palestine. There's maybe 2 or 3
So
politicians.
then you're saying it's successful then?
No, it's
Because-
not.
Well,
It's
as
not.
because like what you're saying is the first time someone's talking about it, and
No, but that's what I'm saying, right? Politically, if someone's talking about it, they're being called murdering whores, from what I read.
Who cares?
Yeah,
Who cares?
Yeah.
So what? Who's
Call
gonna,
me.
I
I'm a
don't know.
murder. You know what?
Like,
I'm a murdering whore. Okay,
There's
now,
like
now what happened?
Yeah, like,
Now what
who's
happened?
writing love letters to their opponent? Like regardless of what the subject is.
That's the whole
like-
thing. Like you are an opponent.
Yeah, you're gonna
and you
hear
have an
no,
opponent.
but
Like,
it's
that is what it is.
according to them, they've had their own colleagues criticize them.
Who
So,
cares?
who cares?
No,
I don't.
I'm
Again,
trying
who the-
to
again-
get to. I'm trying to
Okay,
get to.
yeah,
No, I'm not.
wait,
Let me. I need.
I'm trying to get to that root
Yeah,
cause,
no,
right?
forget the
I'm
root
trying to
cause.
say-
I want to say this cosmetic stuff that happens right now. Like how this person, they said this, and now they're facing backlash and whatnot from their colleagues or this or that, and it's like, okay, that is kind of that's like part of the job description, right?
Yeah,
but
you
it's
speak
somehow,
out and you will.
It's
It's
somehow
a struggle.
like
it
makes,
is a struggle. That's the point.
the thing is like these like specifically like people like Rashida Tlaib have been using that for like what 3 years now, 4 years now, where they're like, what the fuck do you want?
Charge it. Charge it.
Yeah. Yeah. So Rashida Talib.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying Rashida Talib.
What about her?
You're talking about movements and how now this is like something where she's getting shit for it. Yeah, when you speak out against it, about an issue, against something that you're opposing,
She's getting backlash.
supporters of that are going to speak out against you.
But they have very minute support. So I mean,
But why is backlash not?
But that's part of the game, is
expected?
what I'm saying. Is like,
No, backlash
who
is
cares if
expected.
they call me
No,
a
sure.
murdering
Like, did you
whore?
not expect someone to call you a whore?
Yeah. Okay, I'm a murdering whore. Okay, now what?
no.
Like, who
But
cares?
what I'm trying to say is, these are the people that they get up with on a daily basis,
Who the
right?
fuck
So they
cares?
know you as an individual,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Now you're supporting a cause. Now, if, for example, those people who called out
Yeah.
to level Palestine or Gaza,
Sure.
were they called murdering whores? Were they called?
Yeah, I
mean,
called
I
her a
called
murdering
it-
whore.
I was
No,
about to say.
What do you mean? Like,
No,
Social
we're
media
calling-
is calling
no,
them
no,
murdering
no. I'm
whores.
talking about the politicians.
They should have
But who
called
cares?
him. No,
But
no,
they didn't.
No, they should have, and they didn't. You should be asking Rashida Tlaib, yo, why did you not call this woman a murdering whore?
I agree with that.
Yeah, like what you were. So they're calling you a murdering whore, and you're like, ma'am, that's so sad.
Well,
sorry.
no, I mean
What
you're
the hell?
but you're calling them a genocide. You know
That has not. That's not the
thing.
same thing.
No, but what I'm
Look,
saying is that's the discourse. Is you are telling them what they are, and they're trying to call you
all
names.
this bullshit about you're a genocidal maniac. Listen, bro, that's like 2 syllables too many for the average American. You need to dumb it down. You need to say, hey, you're an idiot. You're a dumbass. And then people are like, oh, look, Rashida Tlaib did something meaningful. We live here, right?
Yeah.
Like people like Trump, they
work
win
for
elections
Trump.
because the other person's like, this guy's
Sleepy
a liar.
Joe.
He's a maniac. He's like, you're a sleepy guy. And that wins.
Yeah.
Like,
that's
and if
true.
you don't understand that, I mean, honestly, you should not have quit your day job. I mean, I know these guys did. There's like a group of
I
4
think
or 5.
that's what's wrong with politics today, right? I mean, it's more of an act rather than actually wanting to do good for the country.
Well, that's why people like Trump win.
Yeah.
There's no act. I mean, yeah, he's an actor, and he's probably acting like an asshole, but people like assholes.
No, but Trump, I would say, actually, quite honestly, if he would have ran the elections between the one that's coming up, I would vote for him. Why would I vote for him? Because I would say that
Trump
at least,
versus Biden, you're saying 2024.
yeah, of course, I would vote for him because I know that he doesn't like me, and he's not pretending to, and he's not faking to like me, right? Then you have Biden, who's all lovey-dovey with the videos that he came out with Obama on the time at the time
he's
of
not
Obama.
even alive, bro.
Yeah,
he's not
So
even
would
alive
you,
anymore.
if that is a choice again? And
I wouldn't vote. Period. I wouldn't vote
to be
because
honest.
both
That's
are
my move.
evil.
Yeah. I don't
Both
care.
parties
Yeah.
are evil. I think the whole system
both
is
of you
corrupt.
are the reason Kanye didn't win last time. Then.
Yeah,
true.
sure.
Fair enough.
But
Fair
but
enough.
but what you could say
I'm gonna
is
vote
that
for
both
Kanye
parties
this
are
time around.
evil. Then you're just voting for one of the lesser evils, right?
Vote for the birthday party.
Yeah, I mean, you're pretty much just saying that, okay, I'm just gonna vote because of the sake of voting, right? I mean,
Is there an American you would vote for?
I actually no, he's not American, but I would vote for Bassam Youssef after his.
Okay, bro, he's
comedian?
not a policy.
Yeah.
He's not a policy. He doesn't know how
you don't
to
think
run a
Donald
country.
Trump is a comedian?
Why is that the
Well,
standard?
Donald Trump was not.
You don't
a
think
good choice.
you don't
That
think Joe
shouldn't have
Biden
happened
is a
either.
comedian?
That shouldn't have happened either.
But you just said you're not gonna vote for either of them.
Yeah, but I think that this guy has
Having okay.
the right conversations that he needs to do politically.
I think that's where his role is. I don't think he should be a president.
No, but he talks about politics. He understands politics.
talk about politics
I talk
too, I
about
understand.
sport. I
So
talk
do
about
you.
basketball,
You talk about
brother.
basketball.
I can't.
But okay, and that's the problem.
Me and
right?
you talked about cricket
And-
last
and-
night.
Politically vocal people I know, you should be
but,
president.
okay, again, so here we're talking about, okay, so he doesn't know politics. Maybe that's what you need. All these people,
stop it.
no, but
Stop
all
it.
these people who have been running for office for the past, and
Oh my god! Then that's how you end up in jail.
Hold on,
That's
hold on.
how people like Imran Khan end up in jail because you come into politics, you don't know shit, and you win because I'm an actor, I'm a cricketer. Well, guess what, buddy? You didn't know the rules.
same thing with Nawaz Sharif and Zalari. They were all gone to jail.
So now
and
the
where are
post-
they now, bro? They've built up wealth and they're living they're on at large. They're good to go. Only one guy's in jail now, right? And it's who? It's this guy who has no money either. So, but you lost both games. Congratulations, Employee of the Month. That's basically what happens to you.
I think in politics in general, you should bring people who first in Pakistan, let's say 70% of the population is under the age of 30, right? And 99% of the politicians are over the age of 60.
That's messed up.
That's the biggest gap that you have between the youth and the political people that are running your country. I think the mindset that needs to change is maybe we need to get these folks out of politics who have been running, and obviously look at the world today. These politicians who have been running these countries for the past 100 years, we've not gotten to a better point. We've just gotten worse and worse because they can't.
You feel like the next generation ideologically is inclined in any way towards the things you are.
I want to give the example of what's his name, Ibrahim Traore, the guy who did the coup in Guinea recently. He's 35. The youngest. Don't quote me on this. I think he was the youngest leader in the history of Africa or something like that. Recently,
a coup?
in modern times, to lead a country. If I'm not mistaken.
Wasn't Gaddafi a young leader as well when he came into when he took over?
Well, I don't know his age, but I mean, he ruled for like 40 years, right? So
Or 33 or something. Yeah, but so like
Yeah, I think he was pretty
basically
young.
you have in Africa, there's this big movement in West Africa of a lot of the youth supporting these coups against the U.S. and France.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I think 6 different countries have had these coups in the past couple years, and like in the past year, there were like 4 or 5.
Yeah, I think what their mindset, they're changing their mindset. Where I think
these are young people.
I can't remember who is the president that was talking to Macron, and he was like, "You keep talking about these this aid that you're going to give us, and it never really takes into action where you said you would give us 200 million, 300 million." But he's like, I think what we need to do is we want to become self-sufficient, so we don't have to take aid from you.
That's what Africa is looking at right now, is self-sufficiency.
And again, I think the direction that they're going towards, it's great. I mean, if African countries unite themselves, I mean, what are they, 40, 50 countries within the continent? If they unite, they would have been the strongest continent in the world. But as soon as Gaddafi tries to move his currency from and wants to back it up by gold, he gets killed. And when he was getting pulled out from his cave or wherever he was hiding, he kept asking, "What did I do that you're taking me and you're trying to kill me?" So I mean, the direction that Africa's headed towards, I think, in the long run, they're going towards the right direction.
Politically, it's looking real good. South Africa as well.
The things that South Africa is saying without...
Who's the leader of that one political EFF?
Is it Nelson Mandela's kid?
No. He's the guy who wears the red hat. He gives these really powerful speeches. He has that one speech. He's like, "Stand up, South Africa," and there's like 40,000 people in a stadium, and they're just like going crazy.
I can't remember his name, but I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
So you have these kind of people who are coming up in Africa. It's a really good example of that. But even look in Palestine, right, Gaza, most of the population is youth.
Yeah, I mean,
more than 50%.
They're under the age of 15. Under the age of 15.
Young,
yeah,
right. Even these people who are leaving Gaza, who left and in that incursion, whatever, bro, these people were born and raised in that tiny encampment.
Yeah.
Which had been bombed year after year after year. You don't have the opportunity to leave. You can't go out and get an education. You can't do it. It's tough.
I mean, you're creating a Hamas, right? This conversation about, we're going to get rid of Hamas. We're going to get rid of Hamas. Hamas is an ideology.
You're talking about...
I don't think it's a set group of people. Let me just attack these people and we're going to get rid of Hamas. Since the last generation has been, or the past 2 generations since the 40s has grown up in a open air prison, right? And constantly being bombarded. What do you think is going to happen? What reaction are you expecting from a group of people that you've kept in an open air prison for the past 75 years?
Think about how crazy that is. Imagine being 25 years old, let's say, for example, and you break out of that open air prison for the first time, and you go into this place called Israel now, and you see the house that your grandfather was kicked out of, and you're like, holy shit.
But let me argue. We're saying that they're in a prison, they're prisoners, but quite honestly, if you look at it, I was reading somewhere on Facebook or Instagram, I think, where they were saying that all this time, and I think it was a Palestinian who said this, and I'm going to quote, he said, or she said, that I always thought that I was in shackles and I was a prisoner, but it turns out that the whole world outside is a prisoner except for us.
Now you look at the resolve that kind of a person is going to have.
Yeah, I mean, their iman and their the mindset that they have is that, resistance. I mean,
now I'm going to bring this back to our question: should we not echo that mindset when we are talking about the Palestine movement?
But at one point it comes down to self-defense. Right? I mean, when is it that it's okay for us to actually go into war? I'm
not talking about us going into war, brother. I'm talking about us
protesting.
I'm talking about
raising voice.
Protesting being one thing, right?
Yeah.
Not to fixate on like one method, but like that and like the movement. There's no lull in the violence for them, even when they're not being constantly bombarded. It's a violent situation on a moment-to-moment basis to be in Gaza, right? They have a consistent resolve. Right, they are still fighting for their lives, despite all of the factors. They're resisting.
It's not even that they're fighting for their life. They're resisting. How can you, dismantle a ummah that's sitting in a small city for the past 75 years, who thinks that, death is not the end, right?
Yeah.
Again, we could get in trouble saying all of this stuff.
But
where,
what right then do we have as people who claim to support that Palestinian cause to project our political nihilism onto it and say, man, we keep doing this, but nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah. Again, what's the solution, right? You're saying echoing, and you're saying.
Well, but I'm saying just on a very, very principled basis, what right do we have as supporters of Palestine, of the Palestinian movement, to oppose?
I'm not opposing.
No, not opposing them. I'm saying to have an opposing outlook. And I'm not saying you specifically, right? We're talking about a phenomenon here, right? But to have an opposing outlook, one of political nihilism rather than one of this kind of tawakkul, this
resolve,
revolutionary resolve, right? I feel like, for me personally, I'm just saying, like, my point of view, right? To me, I look at that as like, okay, that is the leadership of like my like compass, of as to how to go about things, and I feel like if that was like the universal understanding, then that resolve is like, bro, you can't.
You can't affect me, right? I mean, when is it that you would see, like, I have a kid, right?
Yeah.
He's 2 years old.
How's he doing, by the way?
And he's doing good. He's doing good. He's 2 years old. God forbid if something happens to him, even if he gets sick, right? I'm like on my toes when I'm at my house,
of
right?
Course.
And when I put that into perspective, I'm like, these guys are losing their families, their generations in one bomb that's falling on them. And yet they're saying, Alhamdulillah, I'm blessed that my kid is a shaheed, right?
Yeah.
So in that perspective, I'm like,
and they keep going.
Yeah, and
that's the thing.
And that's the amazing part about it, is that they're still resisting.
But isn't that a directive for us as well?
But what is our responsibility? Do we
whatever you can do?
And that's the thing. Me and my family, we have these daily table talks regarding this, and we're like,
beautiful.
What's the solution? I mean, going to the protest, sure, it's great, but what's the solution? I mean, do we, us living in the States, paying taxes?
Well, we are not going to liberate Palestine. Let's have no.
But every population has an Ali or Hussein or Salahuddin, right? That one mindset. No, I'm not saying obviously to their caliber, but what I'm saying is that mindset that's free of all these worldly desires, right? If you have that desire of, and again, I'm gonna quote my own life, where when I was growing up, I always thought money was the solution to every problem, right? I would be like, if I have this much money in my pocket, I would resolve a lot of the problems that I have.
Sure.
The bigger house that I have, the more respect I get. But now that mindset has changed, right? I mean, now how I think about it is that, okay, even though I get a bigger house or I get a bigger car or I do all of the stuff that I wanted to, I'm still going to go into a grave that's 8 foot in height and whatever 3 foot in width, right? So I mean, in that perspective, I'm like, none of this stuff matters to me. Like internally, I'm not content. Financially, I'm great, but and a lot of that fear that kicked in a lot of the times when I would be speaking up when I lost my job previously, then my company losing this project, I kept thinking, I'm gonna get affected wealth wise, right? And I'm sure I don't know if you guys saw my video on Instagram that I posted.
Which one? I saw it. I think there were a couple, right?
It was like when I was talking about Palestine and how when you're losing something and you're standing on haqq, Imam Hussein said, I'd rather die on my feet than on my knees. Yeah. Even if I lose all of the world's wealth, I don't care as long as I'm standing on haqq.
And there's that absolute optimism there.
Right. And I think, generally speaking, going to the protests, I feel like it satisfies our nafs more than it actually resolves the problem. I don't know. That's my opinion.
So stop going to the protest.
What would you find substantive towards that? Like, what would you find that's like an action you can take that?
I mean, people might hate me for saying this, or have like this thought that I have an extreme view at this, but I think an all-out war is the solution to this problem.
No, that's over there. I'm talking about what
Over here?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm talking about you, us.
The solution is,
movement,
look,
what we've been talking about.
I personally, me and my brother and my family, we've been talking about, hey, what if this were to happen? What would we do as people who are living in America, right? I mean, what's the solution? Can we help them financially? No, because there's a blockade of Gaza. And a lot of people that give you that response, they're like, hey, you're a good businessman. So because you're a good businessman, you could help them financially,
Yeah,
right?
but it's like, wait.
But then you're getting pushed towards the dunya rather than the deen, right?
Well, that's on you to balance.
Yeah, but it's for us to balance.
yeah.
But again,
That's the test.
that pool of water that you're jumping into, it's towards, hey, let me gain wealth so I can help these individuals, but I can't, right? Because there's a
Okay,
blockade,
yeah, I
right?
see what
Even
you-
if
yeah.
I become, inshallah, you both become multimillionaires and you guys have hundreds of millions of dollars, but do you think your voice will still have value?
Well,
My
that
voice had
depends.
value without the hundreds of millions.
No. Let's just say today 5 people are listening to us. When I have $100 million, maybe 300-400 people will listen to me. But will I still have an impact?
Well, that's what the question for you is, like, what is the if it's not going to the protest, for example?
No, let's just say
what?
you make
What
$100
could it
million
be?
by the
Okay,
time whatever
okay.
you age, you
Next
become
year.
40 years
Next
old,
year.
right? Let's say
Yeah.
next year.
Yeah.
By then, how many Palestinians have to give their lives?